right people and make sure you understand the position and requirements. At Ironhide Construction, it's own it, be honest, and do it right. Apply today and learn more about their other benefits at ironhideconstruction.com, where they're committed to you every step of the way.
93.7 The Ticket, Fox, KFXL weather. Brought to you by Bryant Air Conditioning, Heating, Electrical, and Plumbing.
Your Lincoln forecast for today, we'll see some morning fog as well as a chance of some showers and storms. Otherwise, mostly cloudy skies expected this afternoon. We'll see a high around 83. Tonight, chance of showers from the late, otherwise partly cloudy, and a low of around 70. And tomorrow, another chance of showers from the afternoon, otherwise partly sunny skies and a high of around 88. Meteorologist Kyle Piper for 93.7 The Ticket and ticketfm.com.
This is the Happy Hour.
You guys going to happy hour?
Coming at you live from the heart of Lincoln, America.
Yeah, I'll come for a couple.
Here are your hosts, Nick Sainert.
I want to know what it's like to commit a crime without having to spend time in jail.
And Enrique Alvarez Clary.
C is for chunk.
Brought to you by Empire Fence and Netting on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Welcome in. Happy Friday. We have made it to the end of the week, and we got rewarded. And we got kind of what we deserved after this week of so many rumors and reports and thoughts and just, I mean, my goodness, what a wild week. 402-464-5685. You know what? Austin, I didn't tell you this. Well, first of all, Nick Sainert with Austin Orman. Hello, Austin. Oh, wrong mic.
There we go.
Hello.
Present.
There he is. So he's on the stream. I think what I want to do throughout this show is send us your thoughts. What are your questions? What are your expectations? What are your concerns, your complaints? What are you feeling right now as college athletics, not just college football, goes through this, I mean, just platonic shift?
Tectonic
of plates. Tectonic plates. That's what I was thinking.
Yes.
Tectonic. But seriously, let us know. 402-464-5685. Seismic shift. I was trying to think of a different word besides because I've used that word.
I would say platonic, except that just means very friendly, and this is decidedly not.
No, this is not friendly. This is anti-platonic. This is non-platonic. No, anyway, 402-464-5685. Because I think we should just go ahead and somewhat do not. I mean, we call it the text bag or the tip jar here on the happy hour, but strictly conference realignment based, because I have a lot. I mean, we've talked about our thoughts about this entire thing the last 2-3 days, and I think now it's time to open it up to the listeners. This can be. We're going to keep it real productive. We're going to keep it real focused on college football or college realignment, conference realignment, but we're going to answer your questions. So however long you guys have thoughts, any concerns, any complaints, any excitement statements that you want to make, you let us know. 402-464-5685. Love to take your phone calls. We had a great phone call last hour from Adam. So we'd love to take your phone calls. We'll field all those throughout the show and just kind of get your guys' thoughts out here. 402-464-5685 is the number to call and text. You can always reach us on the Starter Heyman Jewelers video stream, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, because Austin, we had a plan to where it's okay. Let's look outside of just football. Right. And I mentioned it at the end. How like the Arizona in Big 12 basketball is spectacular. Oregon in Big 10 basketball is really interesting. There's a lot of things to get excited about that's not football, but it gets overshadowed by football, understandably so.
Washington softball, Washington basketball can be kind of fun.
I mean, even volleyball. I mean, my goodness.
Oregon volleyball,
Oregon soft. There's a lot to be excited about. So
Rico's tweeting about Oregon track.
Oregon track has unbelievable facilities. So
I wonder. I mean, props to the Nebraska track team. They're going to have to raise their level even further if Oregon comes in. I feel like Oregon and track is going to be what Iowa has been to wrestling in some ways.
All right, let's do this first here. Here we go. We're going to go number one with first off is Jeff. He'll kick us off on the Honda of Lincoln hotline. Jeff, what's on your mind today?
How are you guys today?
Doing well.
Yeah, a lot of excitement.
Yeah.
Hey, I was thinking about how the divisions are going to play out and stuff, especially for football and stuff. But what do you guys think about a lottery system for who you have to play in your division each year? So instead of having set divisions, instead of us having to play Washington every year and Oregon every year, USC and UCLA, do a lottery system, and every year it's an event, and you draw who's going to be in your division that year, maybe keeping it fresh. So
yeah,
I'll drop off and let you guys talk about it.
All right. Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate the phone call. Okay. So Austin, I know you have thoughts on this.
I get the concept.
I do as well.
Get the thought. I get where you're coming from, Jeff. I'm going to say no, because think about how it's worked out for Nebraska recently, right? It's worked out that Nebraska has played Ohio State and Michigan every year.
Yeah.
Iowa missed Ohio State for like the last 5-6 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If you do a lottery, I mean, it already feels rigged to some degree, right? Like, why does Nebraska have to play these teams? And if Nebraska was good, maybe we wouldn't be having this conversation. But every time you have a lottery, every time you have a drawing for who your schedule is, it just brings in even more of a chance to say, oh, it's rigged. Oh, the Big Ten hates this conference.
Exactly.
Oh, they rigged the numbers. You have to do it where you give the, proprietary kind of guise of fairness.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it. Everyone is supposed to have the same chance, but we've seen it with gambling. You don't know it's happening behind the scenes, but it makes you raise a question. So for the integrity of the game, the integrity of the schedule, and honestly, for the ease of the ops people who have to schedule this stuff, it's nice that you can have these schedules a couple years out, where at least you'll be on the road at XYZ ABC one year, and then it switches. Might not know the exact date, but you know where you have to start looking.
I think also part of this, two things here really quickly to answer Jeff's question. Once again, 402-464-5685. To answer Jeff's, in response, I think first off, are we in the agreement, Austin, where this is trending towards 24 teams?
Yes.
Okay, so let's operate under the assumption that the Big Ten is going to have 24 teams here in the coming months.
5 years.
Yep,
at latest.
Yeah, exactly. So with that under agreement, you have to separate in divisions, because let's just say you have two divisions of 12 teams. You're not going to be able to play everybody, number one. Number two, if you just send the top two teams, we talked about in the previous couple of days, you're going to have a lot of tiebreakers. And do you really want to worry about head-to-head being the deciding factor? Nebraska beat Minnesota. Or, you know how it works.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's going to be a lot of controversy in that. I think so. When you have that many teams in a single division or a single span, and you just send the top two teams. So that's number one. Number two, I think there's also an avenue here. With 24 teams, you'll have 4 divisions of 6. Well, you're going to play more than 6 games. So you're going to have somewhat of a rotating, or not necessarily a lottery, but you're going to have the ability to play other teams from other divisions, right? If Nebraska isn't in Ohio State's division, which they probably wouldn't be, then you're sitting there going, all right, well, maybe every 3 years Nebraska goes up to Columbus, or maybe, the third and fourth year down the road, it's a home and home for Ohio State and Nebraska, and then they don't play each other for another 3 years. There's a way you can have this rotating clock where those remaining 3 or 4 games that used to be covered by non-con games are now just conference games with guys out, or with teams outside of your division.
So here was just an initial thought I had for scheduling. If we do go to those 4 divisions and 6 team, divisions, like it seems like we're going to do, you're going to play all 5 of those teams every year. Okay, exactly. That makes sense. You have 3 other divisions, and then I think you can do that sort of NFL style where you play the team that's matched up across from you, record-wise.
Yeah.
Right. First place teams play first place team in the opposite division. Now, if that game's wouldn't already be on the schedule, right? That's kind of a flex spot for one of those games. Also, depending on how the divisions break out, if they do it geographically, which I still think is most likely, as opposed to Legends and Leaders style, RIP.
Legends Leaders.
Right. You might still be able to get some of those protected rivalries like we were talking about over last offseason, right? Where Nebraska locks Iowa in on the schedule. So I think there's still some room for that, but it brings up what happens to, quote unquote, non-conference games. like playing Oregon and Washington is still a non-conference game. It's still going to feel like a non-conference game. And my worry with the schedule is that every game's going to be a big game, right? Every game is going to be between brand name teams. And we say we want that now, but there are no weeks off, right? And I know you can't take any opponent lightly, but sometimes it's nice because ticket prices are cheaper for Northern Illinois in Louisiana Tech. It's easier for families to get to those games in some ways. I still think it's good for the sport that you have those teams, come in and play in these, big stadiums, have group of 5 teams play up, have FCS teams play up, once or twice a year. Those schools need those checks for their operating budgets in so many cases. Right. And not that it's, Division I Power 5's job to look out for those schools, but if you can, why wouldn't you? Right? Because it can't just be about 67, 68 schools.
It's the same situation as Washington's finding out with Washington State right now, right? You somewhat have this unofficial partnership and brotherhood with the schools within your state. Let's go back to the phone lines, 402-464-5685. We'll take our second call of the show. Martin's been waiting patiently. Martin, thanks for waiting. What's on your mind today?
I just wanted to bring up, because everyone's really scared right now about the geographical concerns with the realignment. But I would think, and this is probably a lot more long-term, but wouldn't you think, let's say the Big Ten eventually is maybe 30 teams, right? I know it's a lot, but like SEC, Big Ten, obviously they're the big players.
Yeah.
Who's to say that eventually it doesn't get to the point where it's back to how it was, where we are playing, Kansas, obviously they're in Big 12 country right now, but we might eventually see the recreation of, the Big 8 like everyone wants to see. That's all I got.
Thanks, Martin. Appreciate you waiting as well. Thanks for being patient. Maybe I think Bach and I kind of talked about it last hour. Once you go to something like this, and so we see it similar with like the playoffs, once you go to something like this in a format, and frankly, with money being the main player here in all of this, organizations and conferences aren't going to want to go back to something smaller. They aren't going to want to divide into something smaller, if that makes sense, because they're going to get these massive paychecks that, while they're unified and all in one overarching umbrella that is the Big Ten Conference, they're okay with divisions because it's all under the same umbrella. But if they break into multiple conferences again, and like Martin was saying, for example, the Big 8, that might, cut into their pockets a little bit, and they won't allow that to happen.
I view it similarly, but differently, in that I think that's where we're heading, right? In 15, 20 years, someone's going to get the bright idea of, hey, let's package all these streaming services together and give it to you as one. We call that cable TV. I think we're going to get to the same
recurring cycle of where it's like, hey, this is exactly what we had 25 years ago, but now it's better.
But it's bigger and better because I view it more as AFL and NFL. Right, where you will have these leagues, probably 2 umbrellas, your Big Ten umbrella, your SEC umbrella, and I hope that some semblance of a West Coast faction survives. So it's important. You can't just cut out an entire time zone. Like that'd be a problem for college football, especially with all the talent that's out there. But I think we're headed to that sort of 2 24 team conferences and a Big 12, but the Big Ten and the SEC are going to come together at some point and make a big overarching football sort of deal for their TV rights.
Now Martin chimes in on the text line, and thanks to Martin for clarifying. He goes, I just mean regional divisions within the conference that we remember. Thanks, guys.
NFL divisions.
Bingo. Yep. Where it's not officially labeled or trademarked as, hey, this is the Big 8, but you bring back those rivalries every now and then, or every season, I guess, with a Kansas State or whatever, throw a team in there, Colorado, whatever.
Right, and that's where Nebraska is playing Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Northwestern every year.
I'll be honest though,
and whoever finishes in the same spot as them in the West pod, in the Great Lakes pod, in the East pod.
But in that line of thinking, the Big 10, or excuse me, the Big 12 is going to have to disintegrate at some point with that line of thinking, because I don't know.
Enter an alliance.
Well,
bring back the alliance.
Yeah, the alliance never happened, as the Big 10 kills the Pac-12 today. But no, I think what's interesting, the Big 10, funny enough, they create that alliance. They kill the Pac-12. They're about to probably kill the ACC as well. So it's funny how everything plays out. I think what's interesting, Austin, is that we can say all this, the division stuff. with 3 conferences and sitting around 20, 24 teams. But in order to bring back things like Martin's talking about, which I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to, you're going to need 30s. You're going to need to have teams in the 30s, which means once it's the 3 conferences of the Big 10, the Big 12, and the SEC, to get 30 plus teams, you're going to have to kill one of those, and it's not going to be the Big 10 or SEC.
It's not.
And you're not going to want to take Mountain West Sunbelt teams. You're going to want the power teams.
Absolutely you are. And it's kind of funny that we always come back to this power versus group, kind of mentality, because that's shifting incredibly. Back in the 80s, 90s, even early 2000s, there was that very clear split. But now with conference realignment, like, has Cincinnati always been a Power 5 team, even though they were in the Group of 5?
No.
What about Utah? Right? Utah is now in talks. Like, Utah was a Mountain West WAC type of school,
right.
And now they're all of a sudden considered a Power 5 team just because they got a Pac-12 invite.
Well, and here's what's crazy though, and I said this last thing before we go to break. The Utes, Utah is a heck of a pull and a great get for the Big 12 conference, a conference that is going to be viewed as the 3rd and the lowest power conference in the country, is now getting a back-to-back Pac-12 champion and a back-to-back Rose Bowl participant. It's huge.
And they win them both if Kim Rising doesn't get hurt.
Exactly.
Heartbreak for Kim.
And if Jackson Smith and Jigba and Marvin Harrison Jr. aren't playing for Ohio State.
Right.
But man, I mean, what a pull and what a great get for Big 12 country, because number one, you for sure preserve the Holy War between BYU and Utah. And number 2, you get, like I said, a team of stature after losing your 2 highest and most known brands, if that makes sense. Okay, we got about 20 or 25 texts to get through that have questions about all this. We appreciate you guys for being so open. Once again, it's official. Oregon and Washington are going to join the Big Ten Conference. And Daniel on the YouTube stream, once again, you can comment on the Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter streams, as well as Allo Channel 951. You can watch us. Obviously, you can't comment on TV. But Daniel puts this absolutely perfectly. He words this as well as anybody could. He says, this has been inevitable for a while, but the speed with which events have moved in the last couple of weeks, and I would actually change that to a last couple of days. Is dizzying. I mean, absolutely. That's how we felt, and we're not even that involved. I can't even imagine how Oregon people, people in Eugene and people in Washington are feeling that they have to cover the teams and the programs. Fall camp has begun. They're trying to get ready for a season, and you have all this going on. It's dizzying for us here in Lincoln. I can't even imagine what it is like on the West Coast.
I put my phone down at about 10 o'clock this morning. I didn't get back on Twitter till about 12 o'clock, give or take.
Yep.
When I left Twitter at 10 o'clock this morning, the last thing I saw was, well, Oregon's still hesitant.
Yeah.
It might keep it together. Arizona State's, dragging its feet.
Yep.
And then I walk into work and they're in the Big Ten already.
Unbelievable. Let's get to all of your texts. We're going to go somewhat rapid fire when we come back. All right. Cause I wanted to open this up for you guys the entire way. And not that we didn't have a plan for what we wanted to do today, because we did. But this is such a large shift in collegiate athletics for the country that we definitely want to spend this time, and let's make sure that we get to all your thoughts and questions and complaints and all that good stuff here on the show today. So 402-464-5685. Thanks to Jeff and Martin for calling in. Feel free to join us on the Honda of Lincoln hotline if you want to call into the show as well. When we come back, we answer your texts rapid fire style here on the Happy Hour.
Follow Nick and Enrique on Twitter at Nick_Sainert and at Radio Rico AC. More of Happy Hour is next on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Too many people believe that chronic pain, allergies, or illness are permanent and something you're stuck with. Novotny Nutrition and Wellness has been proving that narrative wrong for 29 years and changing lives for the better in the process. Their team is trained in the newest, most advanced pain-relieving techniques and ways to deal with toxins, allergies, pollution, and emotion that make you ill. Call today for a free consultation at 531-254-5695 or go to novotnynutritionandwellness.com. Novotny Nutrition and Wellness, located at 7th and Superior.
The sweet relief of air conditioning after a hot day in the summer sun. For only $2.88 a day, LES helps power life's special moments and your comfort. Learn more at les.com/value.
Gray Diesel and Equipment Services is your go-to place in Lincoln for repairs and maintenance for diesel pickups to Class 8 over-the-road trucks and trailers, from bumper pole utility to full-size semi. Gray performs DOT inspections and are a service provider for fleet companies like ARI, Element Fleet, and FleetNet. They're a family-owned business in operation since 1952, and they keep a clean, friendly shop. Customer service is their top priority. Give Gray Diesel and Equipment Services a visit today, with easy access just off I-80 and North 56th Street.
Integrated Life Choices has been inspiring opportunities for individuals with disabilities for more than 15 years in Lincoln and across Nebraska by offering a number of services. From group homes to independent living resources and job training, you'll find the support that allows people to live fulfilling lives. They're also hiring. If you're looking for a rewarding career supporting people with developmental disabilities, you can check out open positions along with learning more about services at ilc.net. Integrated Life Choices.
Rico here with HIS Auto Care at 70th and Van Dorn, letting you know HIS is a great place to bring your vehicle for service. With superior service bumper to bumper, we'll treat your vehicle like it's your mother's. Doesn't get any better than that. So call 402-488-8934 and HIS Auto will make you glad you did. 5% off, mention this ad, and for sure your mother will be proud you called. 402-488-8934, HIS Auto Care, 70th and Van Dorn. God bless you.
This is former Husker and NFL linebacker Jay Foreman. For years, I've suffered from degenerative problems in both of my ankles, but thanks to a thorough and thought-out plan provided by Advanced Medical Imaging, I was able to get my life back with the least amount of pain as possible. While working through multiple options, the team of physicians at Advanced Medical Imaging were there to answer any questions I had. If you're experiencing any pain at all and want to get your life back, go to amimaging.com or give them a call at 402-484-6677. Advanced Medical Imaging, located at 7601 Pioneers Boulevard.
Gaina Trucking is hiring CDL Class A and B drivers. Gaina Trucking guarantees a 40-hour work week year-round, and their strong team culture makes it not a job, but a career. Gaina Trucking offers health, vision, and dental insurance, 401k with company match, an employee assistance program, and other bonus programs. Build a better career today with great team culture at Gaina Trucking. Learn more and apply today at GainaTrucking.com.
Mary Ellen's Food for the Soul. Smoked meats, amazing sides. The only problem when they fix you a plate is that at some point, that plate will be empty. But hear me out. What if that plate was never empty? That dream can be your reality with the Mary Ellen's Express Lunch Buffet. From 11 to 2 every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and even Saturday. One price, all you can eat, and it even comes with a drink. Tell your boss you're taking a long lunch and get down there. Mary Ellen's Food for the Soul at 29th and Pine Lake. Let them fix you a plate.
I heard you and Jack had a disagreement.
Yeah, he says I keep things from him.
What are you going to do?
He loves the Nebraska Lottery's Powerball First Millionaire of the Year promotion. So I'll buy a Powerball with Power Play and Double Play ticket before August 14th, and I could be one of 15 winners of $1,000. I'll also be entered for a chance to win a trip to New York City for New Year's Eve and a chance at $1 million.
$1,000? That should make him happy.
Depends.
On what?
If I decide to tell him I won.
Powerball top prize odds, 1 in 292 million.
What are you doing, hon? I thought we were going to pick up our Powerball with Power Play and Double Play tickets.
Hold on, I have to sit through this video meeting for work.
Do they realize how big the Powerball jackpot is?
I know, but these blowhards keep rambling on.
I don't want to miss my chance to win millions of dollars.
Well, neither do I, but how do I get these win bags to speed it up?
Dave, you're not on mute.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
Play Powerball from the Nebraska Lottery. Top prize odds, 1 in 292 million.
Are you working in or looking to get into the electrical construction industry? The electrical workers of Local Union 265 are now hiring licensed journeymen and apprentices and are offering great pay and benefits. Call Mike at 402-875-1034 to apply. Start your electrical career today.
Start your Sundays off right with Jeff and Nicole Essink on Fitness Fanatics. Jeff and Nicole discuss health and wellness, how to achieve fitness goals, and more through the life of gym owners and gym goers. It's Fitness Fanatics from 9 to 11 a.m. on Sundays on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Getting experience to jumpstart a meaningful career can be difficult, and education can cost a fortune. Luckily, AmeriCorps can be the solution. With AmeriCorps, you'll earn a stipend and education award while helping people. Plus, you'll gain professional skills and make connections to help you build your career. If you're ready to start a career you can be proud of, visit serve.nebraska.gov/service to find a program for you. Paid for by Serve Nebraska, aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
You're listening to the Happy Hour with Nick Sainert and Enrique Alvarez Clary.
When I gave you the cookie, I heard very clearly, I don't think about you, Schmidt.
Why would I think about you?
Because we're friends. We're not animals.
We're men. The only time a man is allowed to think about another man is when that man is Jay Cutler.
On 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
What more could you ask for on August 4th? Other than conference realignment, it's official. I mean, my life is going great. We have Oregon and Washington joining the Big Ten Conference. Husker football is only 27 days away. And the Cubs are 2 games out of the first place in the NL Central, facing the Braves right now on MLB Network. 0-0 top of the second. It's not baseball time, though. As we promised, it's going to be your guys' show today. 402-464-5685, the Honda of Lincoln hotline and the Starter Heyman text line. Love to take your phone calls, and we will answer all your texts. Let's just go ahead and knock some of these out here, Austin.
We got 24 minutes till the top of the hour. We got 29 texts. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So a little bit of rapid fire action. We do have another break in between. We'll bring Strick in for the crossover here in a moment. All right, so we start off, let's see, Elise's dad. That was the first one of the happy hour back, and I hope everybody's still listening. This one came back in at 1:12 p.m. Who's next?
That's the $30 to $40 million question.
Yeah.
Who's next for who? I guess is the other question.
Who's next for the Big Ten?
For the Big Ten,
and let's do the next 2 teams.
Cal and Stanford.
Ooh.
To get you to 20.
Okay.
And then after that, I want to get into Florida State during On the Block, but I think they're doing everything in their power to be next.
Okay, I am going to say my next 2 schools for the Big Ten Conference are Florida State, and then I think it's some lower level ACC school.
Georgia Tech,
a Duke. I think it's one of those.
Watch yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's one of those because I think we start to see and hear reports of the ACC getting picked apart.
Okay,
I really do. All right, who's next? All right, hey dog, what's up, dog? Says, do you see non-con games still a thing, or do you think you guys just go straight into Big Ten play? I had a follow-up question when you talked about matching across in divisions. The best team in the North Division plays the best team in the South. Best team, third best team in the East plays the third best team from the West. Such stuff like that. Does that come at the end of the season? Could we see them play, basically schedules get flipped, you play all your divisional opponents at the start, and then you play the crossovers at the end?
Well, that sounds like to me is Champions Week from 2020, and
Gotcha.
I've always been a huge fan of that idea. I would have loved the Big Ten to have gone to or stuck with a 9-game kind of conference schedule, but with the divisions left that, I guess you want to keep, Ohio State, Michigan, and Nebraska, Iowa there. So either you start the season with the crossover, the conference season with that crossover matchup, or you do that the second to last week and just take the records up to that point as long as it's not a rematch. But I still think you can do it where you mix and match, right? You're not right now playing all 6 of your divisional games at the very end of the year. Obviously, they try to backload it that way because those are the games they want to matter, which is why you see Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, those 4 teams, pretty much exclusively play each other the month of November until Nebraska, Minnesota starts off this season. But like the NFL, they do save a lot of those divisional matchups for the last week of the season, but they also start the season with them, and they're sprinkled in throughout, usually the better ones at the end of the season. So no, I don't think you have to do it that way, but you could.
Yeah. All right, here we go. Nyla says, keep on topic with Nick. Yeah, that never happens. Here we are, still on topic, though, Austin Norman.
All week long.
Yep. Virtual fist bump over across the table. We have unnamed texter asks, what happens to Cal and Stanford?
They coming.
I disagree.
Okay.
I think they go Mountain West.
I think they're too good for the Mountain West.
I think a team like a place like Oregon State's too good for the Mountain West.
I think Cal and Stanford have enough academically.
Okay.
They won't want to debase themselves, so they will hold out for whatever they can get that's not the Mountain West.
Maybe it takes a longer amount of time, and maybe they hold out for it. I think there's also some attraction here to the Mountain West for the teams such as Cal, Stanford, Oregon State, Washington State to the Mountain West, because they are going to be top dogs. We talked about if Oregon would have halted this Big Ten arrival and stayed in the Pac-12, they would have been in a really cushy situation the next 10 years, but they didn't. And so I think there's, as weird as this sounds, attraction for a place like Cal, maybe more so than Stanford, to go to the Mountain West. For the Mountain West side of things, you want Cal and Stanford because your media rights deal goes until like 2026, 2027. So you'd be able to intertwine them in for a short period of time, enough time also to get your media rights deal to be kind of reconstructed to where you're getting a little bit more money with those two schools, or four if you add Oregon State and Wazoo. And then after that, you're probably you're looking at one of those streaming deals or a CBS Sports only type of deal with the Mountain West. And if you're Cal and Stanford, you're sitting there going, well, heck, in the Pac-12, we were going to go Apple TV streaming only, but here we still have the option of
CBS Sports
Network and the 9 p.m. game still, or even Fox Sports 1, Fox Sports 2. Like some of those back channels, I think then you can figure out where it's might be feasible for Stanford and Cal.
I think you're onto something there. I do think that given the opposition from, at least like the vote's going to be unanimous for Oregon and Washington. Again, want to get into that during On the Block, but I think there's going to be at least a couple Big Ten presidents and chancellors and boards of regents that say, well, we don't want to completely sell our souls, right? We can see that the Big Ten has, and they need to just drop the pretense, but I still think there's going to be enough push for a couple academic schools, whether it's Cal and Stanford or those, lower level ACC teams, that some of those academic giants get in just for that reason.
All right, let's keep it rolling here. With the development of all these super conferences, will college football eventually look like the NFL, where division winners are rewarded with a college football playoff spot? I think you're heading there anyway, that even if you don't win your conference, if you win the Big Ten South, you're going to get in, because you're going to have the resume to where, they lost to Michigan in the Big Ten semifinal, or they lost to Ohio State, the last game of the year. That's fine, because you beat the rest of the Big Ten teams that are going to have the most, respect nationally, more so than a Mountain West team. So I think we're both in agreement there. What is the number of teams that you think these conferences will stop at? Is it 20? No. If we're talking short term, I think it's 24. I think if we're talking long term, 15 years down the road, I think we're going to see 30, and we're going to see, in the 30s, and there's going to be two conferences.
30 or 32 makes sense, depending on if you want to go MLB or NBA style. But I think the off the wall option that I could see is, even though we're sitting at, 67, 68 power conference teams right now, what if we get to 40 and have two, like you have 80 teams across the Big Ten league and the SEC league.
Yeah.
And you split it up into, you're probably not going to do, 10 divisions. No. I mean, I could do four with 10 and do it like soccer style relegation. You could do, 5 with 8 would be kind of funky. 40 seems a little big and clunky, but I also think it's going to be hard to kick some of these teams out of their Power 5 designation.
Somebody says, basically, I would like to see Nebraska be able to play their old rivals, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Colorado, and Kansas State. Maybe that's coming down the road, probably not for a substantial amount of time. Doug with mesothelioma says, in Europe, UEFA, which is a soccer league, has coefficients that rank each league. Just do the same for the teams. Each team gets a certain amount of points for their success over the past 3 years, and each schedule needs to be around a total number of points. Understandable. Why not? Figure out some sort of consistent schedule module or program to figure out each team's schedule.
I like where the head's at, but again, that sounds a little BCS-ish to me.
Computer-wise,
and we tried to get away from that with the college football playoff. So I think you're onto something, but that metric would have to be tweaked. And they're still going to be griping about, how teams are ranked or how they're scheduled, regardless of the model. So I don't think that solves everything, but I like where your head's at.
All right, here we go. Continue it. Once again, 402-464-5685. We're just going through all the questions here, somewhat rapid fire. Downtown Scott asks, how quick does the SEC make a move? We brought it up the other day. Like, SEC is kind of quiet in all of this. I think the SEC needs to also decide whether or not they want to stay Southeastern Conference and stay regionally, or southeastern part of the country, and then they're going to really take advantage of the ACC. If not, then go ahead and expand nationally. But now it's to the point of, who do they go get from the western portion of the country? Like, maybe they try to go after Oregon, but it doesn't feel right. Number one, it doesn't look good. Number two, and I don't know how that would have been beneficial for Oregon. And so I think, is it weird to say that the SEC is kind of in a bind, or where they only have one choice, and it's to attack the ACC?
No, you're right, because there are just some teams that feel like an SEC team and some that don't. I think there's a higher concentration of those types of teams in the southeastern corner of the U.S. that you can make that work a little more geographically, right? If you expand maybe a little bit into Texas, up into Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, but kind of cut it off of that kind of Mason-Dixon line to some degree. That's south enough and east enough. There's enough there. Whereas the Big Ten then does have to get up to Jersey, does have to get out to the Pacific Northwest.
I just think, man, it has felt weird that we haven't heard even rumors or reports of SEC presidents saying, yeah, you know what, let's go ahead. And maybe part of that is that they want to do the due diligence to Texas and Oklahoma, saying, hey, we appreciate you guys joining us. Let's give it 1 or 2 years. Let's celebrate the teams we have of Texas and Oklahoma and everybody else, right? And say, yeah, let's just go ahead and just celebrate this for the short term. And then in 3 or 4 years, then we'll hit the ground running hard.
My last quick point is, like you said, with Oregon and Washington being vetted so quickly, the SEC is already moving behind the scenes. Just because we're not hearing about it doesn't mean they're doing nothing. Just because they're not adding teams this year doesn't mean they're standing pat. That work is already being done behind the scenes.
I'm going to come back to this one from Cody, who talks about more conference games, more conference losses, surprise losses, and risk for playoff contenders. I want to come back because in the crossover, man, I want to go down. I want to talk about it for so long, and we only have so much time, unfortunately, because I want to talk basketball and what this means for like the second biggest sport. And then also third, what does this mean for coaches? Like coaches, it is going to get exceptionally harder to not only recruit, and this is where we can bring Nebraska into it, recruit to Nebraska. Washington's sitting there going, sweet, we're in a power conference now where we're getting as just as much, or maybe a little bit less national respect than the next guy. And guess what? We don't have to compete with Stanford and Cal in California. We don't have to compete with Washington or that Northwest part of the country has some really good talent at the high school ranks. And now they're going to say, hey, and same with Oregon, obviously, but Oregon obviously competed with a lot of guys and was in a lot of guys' top 5 decisions and things like that. It's going to get exceptionally harder to coach at this level. And then you talk about what size is the leash for coaches? How long do programs and institutions stick with the coach? How long are contract agreements? There's just a lot of, because understanding that it's harder, we know it. Maybe it's not fair, but you sign a shorter term deal, so the payout when it doesn't work isn't as large. And we've seen this shift in college football to where it was like, all right, 3, 4, 5 year agreements to now 10-year agreements. Maybe it's going to go back down to 5-year agreements just so that the buyout, if it doesn't work, doesn't cost, keep saying organizations.
That's what they are at this point.
Costing programs so much money. So I just think there's so many fascinating angles on this. Big Daddy Travis says, don't forget the playoff expands in 2024 to 12 teams. So if they do a semifinal game and the 2 winners play for the Big Ten championship, all 4 teams will still more than likely make it to the playoff. Now with 3 super conferences, it'll be interesting how they determine how many teams from each conference will make the playoff. And you're absolutely right, Travis. I mean, all 4 of those teams are more than likely to make the playoffs, unless there's one weak conference or weak division like the Big Ten West to where it's like, all right, do we take an 8-win Nebraska team, or do we take a 10-win Penn State team, but they're also in Ohio State's division and Ohio State beat them in the one game? Do we take Penn State and not take Nebraska? There's going to be that whole conversation as well, and controversy in my opinion. Gator says, how does this affect bowl games like the Rose Bowl? Probably going to be Big 10 versus Big 12.
Or
is everything at large?
Do you play the Big 10 championship game at the Rose Bowl?
Maybe. I also see like a place where all New Year's 6 bowl games and pretty much all bowl games are just at large bids.
Well, here's the thing. Bowl games are going away, right? We're going more to a tournament style postseason, like professional leagues, like FCS football. So maybe you still call it, the X Bowl, but essentially we're going to have wild card weekend. We're going to have your divisional round, your conference round, your conference finals round, and then your championship game. So I wouldn't be shocked to see bowl sponsors go away, and you just pull in huge dollars to get a couple TV commercials during these weekends.
Yeah. Here we go. What happens when the top teams get tired of sharing the big money in these massive conferences? What happens if Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Bama, Georgia, Texas, Oklahoma, USC break off to start their own league with the draw of a huge TV contract luring them away? I sure hope that doesn't happen. I don't think they'd want to have that happen, because there is such a thing as if you're in too competitive of a conference, and if you're like, I don't want to say mediocre team, but if you're having a down year, you're not making the playoff. If you have a down year in the Big Ten and you still figure out a way to, sneak out a couple wins, you're going to be in the playoff. But if you're in that much of a competitive conference, then I don't think, like if USC has 3 losses, they're not going to make it, because same with Oklahoma. But I don't know. That's just my thought, is sometimes the more competitive and more top heavy is not always good.
If you're watching on Twitch and you have the expertise, feel free to clip this and throw this back in my face when it happens. I will tell you that isn't going to happen. This is the closest we're going to see to these teams breaking away, because as big as these brands are in college football, as big as college football has gotten, it's still not as big as professional sports, because you're splitting up the money so many different ways. Like there are 30 NBA teams, there are 30 MLB teams, there are 32 NFL teams. That's, for the NFL to college football example, that's 4 times fewer NFL teams. Those teams are big enough to carry entire markets and entire states. Whereas, Nebraska has 1.7 million people. It's the only team in state. Okay, fine. But Alabama, Auburn splits that state. Georgia, Georgia Tech, South Carolina, Clemson, North Carolina, Duke, NC State, Wake Forest, Virginia, Virginia Tech. There's so many more colleges and universities around that the fan base for these teams is so split up. It's much more fractured than the NFL, because you just have so many more options out there to root for. There's not as much money in, college football on a per team basis as there is in the NFL.
All right, Austin, we got like a couple more. We're doing well. Do you guys think that football will do like the basketball teams do and stay out on the coast and play multiple games over a couple weeks? As in like Rutgers and Maryland are a package deal, and USC, UCLA would be 2 teams you would play in 2 weeks. Maybe. I think it's tougher with football, because with basketball, you can play on like a Monday and then play on a Thursday. This is where, how much do academics matter?
Yep.
That's exactly what this comes into play. How much do academics matter? Do they offer, are institutions going to offer online only classes? Are they going to offer Zoom classes where professors that maybe have 85% of their class in person, are they going to offer athletes to stream in when they're on the coast in this situation?
Matt Rule doesn't even want that for his guys. He's recommending them take classes in person.
And as former college students ourselves recently, we can agree that college classes in person are much easier to participate and focus in than over. You have to have the motivation, I think, in some regards, to go to class, and you just become a better learner. Here I am sounding philosophical. It's easier to learn and remember the content as somebody that went through COVID, right? It's easier to want to be there when you're in person. and it's easier to engage. Not only you engage, but somebody engage with you.
Even if you don't want to, even if you're not at school to play school, it's still to your benefit if you go to class instead of having to do it online. There have been studies done for, now that remote learning has been done for that long, but there have been studies done about just how more effective writing with a pencil and paper is than typing on a laptop and reinforcing those neural pathways. I will say, as it comes to those kind of travel swings, it's not going to happen for football, right? You'll play games on the road, back-to-back weeks, maybe even 3 in a row. But this is where baseball, basketball, volleyball, this is where you start to worry about that travel. Like, you're going to have professional style road swings where you're playing 7-8 games on the road in the span of 2 weeks. And that's a long time to be gone.
I think also part of it is that maybe with the increase in payouts per school, you would hope that travel accommodations become nicer for student athletes, right? That we're talking bigger planes. We're talking more comfortable planes. Like this is now so here's this. Because football has decided to move towards a professional feel, that is going to force every other sport to now move to a professional feel, in my opinion. Because football has decided, football is the main driver. Because football has added these Western Coast schools, and they include the East Coast schools, strictly for the money, pretty much, and the brands, you are now forcing, all right, just because football will hopefully get a big plane, volleyball needs to get a bigger plane, just as big of a plane. You need to accommodate all of your student athletes simply because of your football program. That's why you have to travel so far. Does that make sense where I'm trying to get at there?
I get where you're going, and that the value of each athlete is the same, right? Just because they choose to play football versus basketball, you have to treat all the student athletes the same, or at least relative to the conditions that they're facing. But I'll push back a little bit. Okay. Just because football is going one way, I don't necessarily think everyone else has to follow, right? In terms of accommodations and student athlete welfare, yes. But in terms of scheduling model,
no,
absolutely not.
No, I agree. Yeah. I agree 100% with that. I'm saying, because football has decided to go Big Ten football as a whole, I'm not talking specific institutions, because Big Ten football is going to force the Penn States of the world to travel to USC. You need to make the same accommodations and same type of flights, same type of hotels, same types of academic help across the board from top to bottom.
Penn State volleyball will travel to USC too.
Exactly. Whether it's football, whether it's basketball, whether it's softball, it doesn't matter. We're talking chartered planes, because because that's the professional outlook. That's the professional outlook that we're going towards anyway. So, all right, let's take a break. We're running up against the top of the hour. We'll bring in Stricky to continue this conversation, get you ready for On the Block as we round out the week on the happy hour. Man, what a wild, wild week. I bet Rico's sad that he's on vacation, but it's just now Austin and I right now. We'll bring in the Husker Hall of Famer Eric Strickland coming up in just a few minutes right here on 93.7 The Ticket.
Download our app by searching 93.7 The Ticket in your app store to stay in touch and listen all day long wherever you are. The happy hour is next on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Problem gambling can destroy an individual's finances, relationships, physical, and mental health. If you or a loved one are struggling with addiction, contact Choices Treatment Center's 24-hour helpline at 402-476-2300. That's 402-476-2300.
Are you tired of living in pain? It's time to take control. At Prairie Orthopedic and Plastic Surgery, we're your one-stop shop for expert care in Lincoln. From broken bones to complex reconstruction, our skilled team will help you get back on track. Visit prairieortho.com today and discover why it's the choice thousands of patients. Don't let pain take the step towards a better, pain-free life with Prairie Orthopedic and Plastic Surgery, where healing begins. Call 402-489-4700.
Are you working in or looking to get into the electrical construction industry? The electrical workers of local union 265 are now hiring journeymen and apprentices and are offering great pay and benefits. Call Mike at 402-875-1034 to apply. Start your electrical career today.
Hi everyone, Killer Warnock, A1 Automotive in downtown Lincoln. If you're looking for an automotive repair facility you can genuinely trust, we would be grateful for the opportunity to earn your business repairing your vehicle. We have ASE master technicians and qualified to work on a variety of vehicles from Hondas to Porsches, Jaguars to Toyotas, and Chevrolets to Fords. We pride ourselves on customer service and relationships, and we would be grateful for the opportunity to serve you. Give us a call at 402-477-4660. A1 Automotive, always honest answers.
Gray Diesel and Equipment Services is your go-to place in Lincoln for repairs and maintenance for diesel pickups to Class 8 over-the-road trucks and trailers, from bumper pole utility to full-size semi. Gray performs DOT inspections and are a service provider for fleet companies like ARI, Element Fleet, and FleetNet. They're a family-owned business in operation since 1952, and they keep a clean, friendly shop. Customer service is their top priority. Give Gray Diesel and Equipment Services a visit today with easy access just off I-80 and North 56th Street.
Gaina Trucking is hiring CDL Class A and B drivers. Gaina Trucking guarantees a 40-hour work week year-round, and their strong team culture makes it not a job, but a career. Gaina Trucking offers health, vision, and dental insurance, 401k with company match, an employee assistance program, and other bonus programs. Build a better career today with great team culture at Gaina Trucking. Learn more and apply today at GainaTrucking.com.
Ironhide Construction is hired. They're looking for hardworking, self-motivated individuals who are team players. Ironhide Construction has openings for an experienced project manager, estimator, apprentice, skilled laborer, and erector or installer. They will train the right people and make sure you understand the position and requirements. At Ironhide Construction, it's own it, be honest, and do it right. Apply today and learn more about their other benefits at ironhideconstruction.com, where they're committed to you every step of the way.
At first, I was really nervous and intimidated to buy a ring. I wasn't sure what I was getting into.
My experience at Starter Heyman was very easy. I felt like I walked out of Starter Heyman with the ring that was going to make her go wow and say yes.
I love my ring. It is so beautiful. I absolutely love my ring. I get compliments on it all the time. I always tell them Starter Heyman. Yeah, we would definitely recommend Starter Heyman.
Yeah, it was great.
We're definitely coming back.
Sure.
Sutter Heyman Jewelers, Lincoln and Grand Island. SutterHeyman.com.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. The home of Kansas City Royals baseball. KNTK FM Firth, 93.7 The Ticket. You're listening to the Happy Hour with Nick Singer and Enrique Alvarez Clay. Sponsored by Empire Fence and Netting on 93.7 The Ticket, and theticketfm.com.
We're back here one final time the week on the Happy Hour. 97 The Ticket, ticketfm.com. And an exhilarating and exciting day. Appreciate you guys' contribution to the show, both on the Honda of Lincoln hotline and the Starter Heyman text line, 402-464-5685. So we had 29 texts, and we have 3 left.
29 text on the wall.
Thank you, Austin. So we got 3 more that we'll get to real quickly here. Hello, Strick.
What's up?
How's the day?
Oh, it's all right.
I like the plaid look.
Thank you.
You betcha. Kip says this.
We're all in blue.
Yeah, we are all in blue. Shout out to not Washington. Somebody blue. Royals. Cubs. Yeah, you got the Royal shirt on. Anyway, Kip says this. Can we drop Maryland and Rutgers? I'm sure we can't, but that would be nice. I hope we don't get to a point where conferences drop off teams.
I saw this tweet. I need to pull it up. I liked it because it made me laugh. There's a sec. It will never stop being hilarious and depressing. Rutgers a fleeting 15-minute window in history to land a secure seat while the sport itself ends. Actual rivalries are dying while not a single in America wants to watch their team play Rutgers.
Wow. Dang. Well, like, here's the
Is he
thing.
wrong?
Here's what's crazy. So, like, first week of the season on a Sunday, I apologize for the echo on the stream. We should have fixed it, hopefully. But what I was going to say was that this first week of the season, Northwestern plays Rutgers on CBS, and that is just not an exciting game when you think what the potential is going to be like in the future, where it's Nebraska versus USC week 1 or Ohio State, Penn State week 1. It's going to be so much better. So once again, 402-464-5685. Got 2 more. Here we go. Okay. Gorilla Bear. What happens to the small non-con Power 5 schools who no longer get paid to come play at Nebraska and Alabama? Thoughts, gentlemen?
Oh, man, that is something to consider, because a lot of those games are going to be
pretty much gone. It's going to be just the big money games that the show, the stations are going to be showing, or the networks. So, yeah, gonna have to go out and get it.
Gonna have to hope TV media
Gonna have to go out
deals
and get it.
can support you,
expand for everyone. Or I don't think they drop football, but I wouldn't be shocked either. I really wouldn't be shocked, because if you look at those $1 million+ paychecks, that is a significant chunk of their budgets.
Yeah. Okay, 2 more here. Fast forward 3 years.
But real quick. Are those interesting games though? Really, like you don't want to see people go beat up on.
But do you want to see a great game every week? Like, I like when we have some weekends that are better than others, where you can kind of afford to miss.
That's what's interesting.
That's a good question.
Do you worry about the sport getting watered down if you have a Nebraska USC or an Ohio State USC matchup every week?
Because then isn't that just the playoff we were clamoring for?
Man,
if we get it during the regular season and the postseason, like, to me, it's just that adrenaline high all the time. Like, sometimes you need to take a step back.
I get it. It's just I just know their eyes don't even turn the TV, because I'm like 5 to 10.
I think that's healthy.
Well, I think it's okay in the beginning of the season. Maybe, and this is just because we're recency, what we're used to here recently. I think those games are okay in the beginning of the season, but one of our biggest complaints across the board is that we don't want to see SEC teams playing Tennessee, Chattanooga in week 12. We don't. It has no interest in me, right? Okay, couple more. Craig, fast forward 3 years. What was the straw that breaks the NCAA's back? Football, basketball? I think it's football, first of all. A specific event, UCLA and USC coming to the Big Ten. This has been in the works for a very long time, in my eyes.
Yeah, the next thing in 2 to 3 years is the SEC watching this and then making a decision. Do we want to go and do that, or are we happy with where we are? And so, it's going to depend. I guarantee you they're watching how this unfolds next year. They're watching to see what that happens.
The SEC is helping Florida State raise $30 million.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah, I did hear that with Chase Bank or something like that. Yeah.
JP Morgan.
JP Morgan, yeah.
Yeah, so... Well, guys, what's coming up on the block today?
A little bit more in this conference realignment stuff. I want to dig into the lack of unanimity behind the scenes, right? The Oregon-Washington vote sounds like it's going to be unanimous because they always are. But why? If you have reservations, why don't you just vote no? If it's going to happen anyways, at least pretend to, vote your conscience to some degree. A little bit on Arizona and Arizona State, kind of that split, what goes into that. Nebraska ball in Spain. We haven't touched on that a lot. Jeez. Just a few things to go over. And this is something I really want Strick's perspective on. Rico sent you and I the tweet of Anthony Rizzo on the concussion thing. Yeah. So I want to get into what's the culture of, playing through something like that or not reporting it. Is it on Anthony Rizzo? Is it on the coaching staff, training staff? What's that culture like in pro sports?
Yeah, it's what an insane week, gentlemen. It's been a lot of fun. It's going to continue into next week because I'm sure things will come out and be released on over the weekend. Just an absolutely roller coaster of a few days here. It really, it started at the beginning of the week a little bit, but man, it heated up on Wednesday. It got hot on Thursday, and here we are boiling over on a Friday. Make sure you guys stick around. Appreciate you guys' cooperation and input on the show the entire hour today. Just unbelievable amounts of texts, great phone calls from Jeff and Martin. Thanks to those two for calling in on the Honda of Lincoln hotline. Make sure you do the same for the folks on the block, man. Exciting times in a seismic shift in collegiate athletics here going on just 27 days before Husker football kicks off against Minnesota. Make sure you stick around on the block with Strick and Austin coming up next. Nick Sander saying so long. Rico is back with me next week, so we'll talk to you on Monday.
This is Bud Sign, President and CEO of LIBA, the Lincoln Independent Business Association. Join us every Saturday from 9 to 10 a.m. on 93.7 The Ticket for the LIBA Business Hour as we discuss this and highlight those who are thriving in the Lincoln area. It's the LIBA